Right, back live tonight here on In Focus. The economic freedom fighters in Gauteng say the election of Nthabiseng Tshivhenga as the new Speaker of Ekurhuleni Metro Municipality Council is one step towards the removal of the Democratic Alliance-led government. The Red Berets say the move paves the way for the EFF and ANC-led partnership to table a motion of no confidence against Tania Campbell. For more on this, we're joined now by Nkululeko Dunga, the Gauteng EFF chairperson. Good to be with you, and thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you. Greetings to you, Mr. Mdlule, and greetings to the viewers of Newzroom Afrika.
Let's start firstly with what's happening in Tshwane. I mean, you are part of that. It seems it was successful, but it is an interim measure that could have some various complications, for example, for that particular administration around things like electing a speaker, around passing a budget. What's your analysis?
Look, we're in this situation because of the election outcomes of 2021, and anything that will speak of trying to navigate through a composition of stable governance will dictate that everything is transitional. You know, we move from one council sitting to the other because no political organization has a majority. In actual fact, most of these compositions of councils are in direct reliant of coalition talks and coalition agreements that seeks to establish governance. So, and Tshwane is no exception. But equally as well, we are extremely satisfied that the council took a decision to actually remove the DA, because it was an EFF pronouncement that DA should be removed from the respective councils on the basis that in as much as initially our support base as the EFF was to constitute a government, and a government that will equate to service delivery, particularly to the constituency that are in destitute lying in the townships, the DA took a racial profiling stance in that they directed service delivery towards their white constituency in affluent suburbs. And there was a need, and a dire need for us to actually take that position. And we're happy that in Tshwane it has unfolded. It's unfortunate that it has unfolded at a time when the DA has dismally collapsed the city of Tshwane. I mean, the Auditor General's finding on 10 billion in terms of UIFWs speaks volumes in terms of the type of government that the DA would uphold in terms of financial mismanagement and not really having financial internal control systems that are put in place in ensuring that the finances of the city are in compliance with the MFMA, but even worse, that the departments are not compliant in terms of the performance targets that are set out.
Are you negotiating in good faith with the African National Congress in this? It's not a coalition, it's some kind of voting arrangement that is happening in these metros in Gauteng. There are some who are analyzing the situation, saying you are still having difficulty, you're not finding each other. Hence, we are ending up with a situation where in Tshwane, the small party with one seat takes the mayorship. It's happening in the city of Johannesburg, and it's likely going to be happening in Ekurhuleni as well.
Well, it matters not as to whether a political organization has one seat or 20. We should not be driven by a majoritarian stance in terms of the composition of governance. So, yes, we are having engagements, and engagements that are in good faith on the basis that we do feel that there must be a composition of governance that is inclusive of all stakeholders and political parties that are progressive by nature and that truly understand the challenges that the constituencies of Gauteng actually feel. And that is what gives guidance in terms of the composition of the respective governments and municipalities.
In Ekurhuleni, you have your speaker now there. Are you ready to pass budget?
The adjustment budget in the city of Ekurhuleni has been approved in the previous council sitting. in as much as it is an EFF speaker, we are also in understanding that the greater role that the Chief Cousin Nthabiseng Tshivhenga would be playing as a Speaker of Council is to also exercise to an extent impartiality and fairness and upholding the standing orders, but equally as well extending public participation in terms of the composition and the amendments of standing orders and any rules, holding the executive accountable, because that is the mandate of the EFF when we come in as a political organization that has contested power and now sitting in the benches in our respective legislatures and council, is to hold the executive accountable. And we genuinely feel that the office of the Speaker is going to give us that, and to actually showcase how a Speaker who truly understands her duties and functions would actually hold the executive to account for all the decisions that are taken by council.
Yeah. Are you going to be able to do that without your key people holding those key positions in the executive? Because as it stands now, of course, that executive is still the executive appointed by Mayor Tania Campbell.
Well, definitely. In the current composition of the city of Ekurhuleni, we are still in opposition. But we have also made our intentions very clear as the EFF in that we are going to be forming part of governance. And we truly understand as well that the role of the Speaker will be directed in ensuring that there is proper accountability mechanisms that are put in place. And, there is no any other organization in South Africa that upholds accountability like the EFF. That's why even internally, in our internal discussions, when you have failed to execute the duties and functions as a member, as a leader within the EFF, there are serious repercussions that must then unfold. And we do not take governance any less lightly than we would have in terms of our own internal controls as an organization.
Yeah. Mogale City, that motion did not sit last night. Why? Do you know what the delay is about?
Yeah, the DA is behaving in the best way that they can. If there was ever a dictatorial organization, it would have been the Democratic Alliance, who feel that they are entitled to a position even when they no longer enjoy majority of support within the respective legislatures and councils. And the conduct of the DA in Mogale City is no different to the conduct of the DA in the city of Ekurhuleni when they literally refused to actually having to table the motion of no confidence against the Speaker, even though it had met all compliance mechanisms that are set out in reference to the Structures Act and the respective standing orders. And that's exactly what the Mogale municipality DA is actually doing. They are refusing to have a ordinary council sitting that would actually legitimize and kick in the motion of no confidence that has been tabled against the mayor there in Tshwane. Now, in the absence of them ensuring that this particular motion gets to sit, is that they then prolong their stay within the benches of the executive, even when they are no longer wanted in those particular benches. So it's a delaying tactic, and we know that every time when we question it legally so, the quickest response that we would get from them is that we must actually take the legal route and take them to court. And consistently, when we have taken such matters to court, like you would have seen in Nthabiseng, when the ANC mayor there refused to table a motion of no confidence that was legitimately brought in, is that we had then won that case, and they were then subjected to actually having tabled that particular motion before council. But it's a delaying tactic more than anything, and they are just delaying the inevitable.
Yeah. So, council has passed the adjustment budget in the last sitting. I know you are on the ground in Ekurhuleni in particular, and probably even larger parts of Gauteng now because of your responsibility. Are you seeing remarkable difference in how services are being delivered? I mean, basic things like picking up of garbage, cutting of grass, and fixing of potholes.
Yeah, we're continuously monitoring governance throughout. That's why the EFF continuously has positions in terms of our stance against the executive and administration generally, not only in the legislature under Panyaza Lesufi, but also in all the other municipalities that when we do find that there are inconsistencies in terms of the performance indicators versus what has been delivered, we're able to identify those. In the city of Ekurhuleni, we remain in a situation that is extremely volatile, and at any given point in time, we're going to wake up to communities who have had uprisings and respective shutdowns in their communities because there's no water supply that is coming through to our homes. There's continuous electricity cuts even beyond the load shedding schedule of Eskom. We're seeing a lot of potholes that remain for months and months without having been closed up. Our stormwater drainage systems have literally collapsed. They're continuously blocked, and there's no plan that speaks to the unblocking of these, which creates floods and creates a disaster-prone environment, particularly for our townships that are based on spatial planning that have relegated them to areas that are prone to disasters such as wetlands. I mean, the entire Gauteng is lying on a wetland. The refugee removal has not been consistent, particularly in the townships. But these are not, concerns and matters of and challenges of governance that are just isolated to the city of Ekurhuleni. You have seen them as well in the city of Joburg, as hence we took a stance to actively participate in governance, because any government that is constituted outside of the EFF, that particular government cannot truly implement the decisions and understand the ideological perspective of the EFF, which has forced us to actually participate in government. And you have seen in the immediate, within 2 weeks in the city of Johannesburg, where we've got the MMC of Public Safety and the MMC of Health, where the departments are activated, even in the absence of administrators, because we've got 2 departments where we literally do not have a huge chunk of senior management that has been appointed. Majority of them are acting and playing an active role, but our MMCs are actually up in there, getting down on the ground, continuously in the CBD areas in terms of enforcing bylaws, cleaning, and ensuring that our city is crime-free, and so is our MMC of health as well. I mean, she went to a clinic in Zenspread. Within 2 days, contractors are now there engaging in ensuring that there's construction that is done to ensure that the toilets are correctly constructed, and they are well in time and prepared for society to actually take control of. Yeah. So we've seen immediate impact and changes when the EFF has actually decided to participate in governance, particularly in the city of Johannesburg. And this is something that is going to spiral across all other municipalities where the EFF is going to form a part of governance. We're going to see the very same energy that is duplicated.
Right. So tell me, in simple terms, I mean, Bongani Baloyi said by April he predicts that Tania Campbell will certainly be out of that particular administration. What will you do, for example, when you are now have now removed the Democratic Alliance government around the situation of Reche Park and the stealing of cables in broad daylight? And it was been reported last week, for example, that they dug a hole in a school and took a whole chunk of the cable and left the other very dangerously so hanging that could have harmed the children. What are you going to do about that situation?
Yeah, well, I do not anticipate the mayor to actually still be in office by end of this month. Because the standing orders of council do allow that she be removed, But in the immediate, what ought to be done is to revitalize the section of the EMPD that is referred to as the cable theft unit. It's undercapacitated, lack of transportation and personnel, and this is genuinely a unit that should be going around and monitoring. And you don't have to monitor on a continuous basis everywhere where a live wire of electricity is actually lying. In most cases, and this is just common knowledge as well, as much as it would be backed up with the report, is that in most cases where you would have seen a spike in the cable theft are in areas where there was load shedding or there was power outages. So you then have to dispatch, and that just requires proper management skills and the political will. Dispatch proper personnel that are well resourced in terms of armor as well, in terms of ammunition, in terms of the protection of themselves, but also in terms of transportation and proper lighting, cars with proper lighting, to actually be dispatched in areas that have load shedding and that are on blackouts, because you would have identified those areas as high risk areas for cable theft, and also zoom into your scrap yards, because those are syndicates that actually inspire cable thefts. Is that after the stealing of these cables, they are then sold at these scrap yards, and there are bylaws that can be instituted, particularly by the Department of Community Safety and being led by the EMPD, who can actually zoom into the monitoring of these scrap yards in terms of compliance and continuous raids and checks on them. And we are certain that if we apply these two basic elements towards the Department of Community Safety, we'll be victorious in terms of cable theft.
So your prediction is not even a prediction, but is your own assessment that before the end of this month, Mayor Tania Campbell will not be in office?
Definitely. The people of Ekurhuleni cannot wait any longer than the end of March to actually ensure that she's removed and that we can go back to genuine basics and have a government of the people where services are directed to our communities. I mean, if that was the case and we had all of this, we would not also be actively engaging in a program of action for the 20th of March in ensuring that there's a national shutdown in Gauteng, particularly in Ekurhuleni as well.
Yeah. Very interesting, actually, now that you bring that up. There are some folks in Gauteng who have raised this issue of yourselves as the economic freedom fighters, for example, embarrassing the president of the ANC, yet you are in some kind of agreement of partnership of voting in the metros in Gauteng. How does that work? I mean, is that not a contradiction in terms where at a national level you are insulting the very same party that you're coming into partnership and arrangement with?
Yeah, well, we are very clear. There's a report against Cyril Ramaphosa, and we are happy that the Constitutional Court and the courts have actually ruled against him just this morning, is in that he's a criminal and he has got to account. So we're even taking an attempt to save the ANC from itself. Cyril Ramaphosa, if they were actually genuine and honest to themselves, is not the ANC. He's a part of the ANC that seeks to capture the ANC completely. And we're here to safeguard society on the basis that the ANC still convenes a certain portion of society and still has a thorough reflection in respective councils, legislature, and parliament. And it is now our revolutionary duty to even protect a dying organization from itself, So we have to do what is in the best interest of society and what is in the best interest of the citizens of Gauteng, what's in the best interest of the citizens across our municipalities, and that is to ensure that there is service delivery that is orientated and that is directed towards these constituencies that are in dire need of water, in dire need of electricity, in dire need of the closing down of potholes so that we can eliminate the risk of cars and accidents being damaged. Cars being damaged and accidents just continuing to rise as a result of the dangerous and hazardous roads. And in that, we're even able to overlook some of the things in ensuring that we do constitute a government, and a government that would actually, we understand more than anyone, that would not only have to look at the departments that would be actively participating in terms of service delivery, but would also be now having to do an oversight, a proper oversight on the very same MMCs that would be leading and forming part of this coalition government or this or partnership of ensuring that there is a government that is constituted. And those are the people that would have to be on the lookout for and guiding in terms of ensuring that they are not found wanting, because the EFF does not want to form part of a governance that would have any other person who would have been part of that governance being fingered in any corruption, fraudulent activities, and even worse, going against the laws of the country.
Nkululeko Dunga, appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on. That's Nkululeko Dunga there, the Gauteng EFF chairperson, saying he doesn't see Tania Campbell lasting any further than this month of March.